What's up? It's me, Haley Jones, and I'm here with John Cressman, aka John of all trades, aka the ultimate handyman, small job specialist. And I think, personally, a great handyman is hard to come by. And today, we have the guy. I'm telling you, he's gonna work for some of my clients. I've met him through a really great connection. I'm telling you, we're gonna learn all the things about what a handyman does, when to call them, who should call them, why should you call them. So before we get into that, welcome, John.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yes, we're glad to have you. Okay, we always do some rapid fire. So in the spirit of, just rapid fire, tell us, where are you from?
Originally from Clearwater, Florida.
Okay.
Came to Carson Newman in the early 90s.
Okay, I went to Carson Newman.
Did you?
Actually, my whole family went to Carson Newman. My sister, well, not my brother, but my mom, my uncles, my aunt, my uncles, my uncle. My aunts went to Carson Newman. So you're a Carson Newman college person.
Yes. And we moved back to Knoxville in 2003.
Okay,
so I've been
cool.
here doing this business since then. I was doing renovations primarily, but now focusing on handyman jobs.
Okay, so as a handyman, what's your favorite repair job or thing to do?
I love doing plumbing and electrical repairs, replacing faucets, replacing toilets, replacing switches, outlets, adding ceiling fan, or adding some pendants or recessed lighting, things like that. I don't mind to paint anymore.
You said I don't mind to paint.
It's enjoyable. I mean, it used to be a really challenging thing many years ago. I did renovation stuff when I was at Carson Newman too, for a guy, and I could only paint for about 3 days before I felt like
you were
pulling hair out.
Yeah. What do you hate doing? Or maybe you don't want to say, you're like, so hire me. I don't know.
Well, it's hard to do something that's big or messy while someone's living in the house and being mindful of their belongings and their flow of life and working around that. That's really challenging. But that's primarily renovations.
Right, like a major reno or whatever.
The doing the small. I really enjoyed coming in and doing a 1 day, 2 day job or a 3 or 4 hour job. Getting paid and moving on to something new, something different and fresh. When I did renovations, it was hard, even if the clients were fantastic, it was hard to be on the same job site for 6 weeks at a time.
What's your favorite Knoxville area?
To do what in?
You name it. Like mine is South Knox because I love being on the water. I love that it's close to downtown. But I mean, I love them all. I'm all over the place all the time. But like I guess for outdoors, I like being there. For shopping, I'm going to like Whole Foods, Old Bougie.
Yeah.
So like, you pick it and tell us more.
So I live in West Knoxville and we're members of Concord Yacht Club.
Okay.
Too. Like I did a sail class there.
Oh, that's cool.
15 years ago, something like that. And so we've stayed members there. It's close to my house and it's a quick place to put in your kayak. It's gated entry. There's usually very few people there. Yeah. And there's also, I like the greenways that side North Shore there and over by the Lakeside Tavern, the ones by the dog park there. It's nice that I can be those places in like 10 minutes, 7 minutes.
Easy. So you're an outdoor guy.
I am an outdoors person,
I got you. Okay. Cool. Coffee or tea?
Coffee for sure.
Black or like, are we latteing it up? Like black coffee, yeah. We get that a lot on this podcast. I don't know why. Dogs, cats, what do you got?
Dogs have nothing right now. Had a difficult experience with a dog that we bought a couple years ago and ended up rehoming, and I never thought I would end up rehoming an animal. That sounded like something that people did. You did something wrong. Right. And I've learned that you can be doing everything that you think is right and still have an animal that's challenging. Right. But I do love dogs. I don't have one right now.
But good on you though. I think that's sometimes hard for people to make that decision. I think that's like really tough. Okay, we're gonna take a hard right turn and we're gonna talk about all things when it comes to small jobs, handyman work, and kind of working on homes. So what are some of the most common things that your clients call you to work on?
Drywall repairs are frequent. Yeah. With the accompanying touch-ups or corner-to-corner painting.
Yeah. So is this like usually people have removed the photo off and like there's nail holes or stuff like that? Or is it punch walls or what all is it?
It could be walls with holes in them because they're getting ready to list and there's a few holes in their teenager's room or something like that. I had one recently where the homeowner's home warranty service company had paid for a repair on the vent line for their gas water heater in the garage, and the guy had just cut a crooked hole in the ceiling and left it, because he doesn't know how to repair the drywall. So it fell on the client to get somebody to fix the drywall, and they'll get reimbursed by the company. Okay. But so replacing that, spraying some textures and knockdown texture on it, and then I generally have 2 or 3 brands of ceiling paint. Not with me, but in my supplies that I can bring and test and see. Hey, it's not going to match exactly, but I'll get something as close as I can. Right. Those types of things. Let's see, what did somebody call me for the other day? Sometimes repairing some work that somebody else was not able to do, or someone had called. I'm not a licensed plumber. I do plumbing. I'm not a licensed electrician, but I do electrical repairs that fall in this handyman type category. But one of my friends, another business owner, had a toilet attempted to be repaired by a dedicated licensed plumber. And he's asking me to come back over to try to actually do what it was he wanted, because it's his toilet's not stable, and the other guy couldn't get it stable. It's in a commercial building. It's on a slab. I don't know why he couldn't, but I have yet to have a problem to get a toilet properly positioned. So I can come in and fix what somebody you expected to fix couldn't do.
Yeah, so when it comes to when do you know if you have a job for a handyman versus a licensed contractor versus a licensed plumber or an electrician? When is it what?
Well, in the state of Tennessee, the lowest license they have is a Home Improvement Commission license, which is for projects up to $25,000, from $3,000 to $25,000. Okay. So I don't have to have a license to do handyman or small projects, as long as they're below $3,000. Okay. Okay. I still carry liability insurance. I had that obviously when I had my Home Improvement Commission license when I was doing renovating. I just think it's a good idea if you're working in somebody's house and on their property, to have liability insurance. But that's all I really need at this point. So if somebody is looking to hire and they're doing something that's requiring permits or changing the structure of the house or major renovations, they have to have a permit. It has to be inspected by the county or city, wherever they are, and only a licensed contractor, which starts at Home Improvement Commission and goes up to up to $500,000. I think $100,000 general contractor license, and then I think there's a $500,000 and then $1 million or something similar to that.
Yeah. Okay. So essentially, it's kind of it sounds like that it's probably a job for a handyman from a financial standpoint if it's less than that $3,000 mark. Give or take, right? So then when it comes to the actual job itself, when clients call you, I guess I'm just thinking if someone's I have this laundry list of stuff that I want to do before I list my house. When do they know? How do they know? Is that just to call you directly? How do they know if the job is going to be too big? Because I wouldn't know how much something's going to cost. In my mind, everything costs $1 million. When it comes to home repair or I have some tile right now that was really poorly done, and it's $11 million to have it replaced. I'm I just got this tile. So I'm just thinking, how do you know when it's an appropriate job for someone like yourself?
Well, the call is free. So I can help you make that determination. And a lot of times I can give estimates just from a few photos. A rough estimate. It saves the client's time or my time as well. If they're getting ready to list their house and they're working with you, you're going to have obvious suggestions as a professional for what they should do. And I can quickly compile a rough price of those things. I focus even on home inspection repairs, which is frequently the seller is presented with. To have these things done, and I've just done it for so long that usually when there's been an inspection, if I can get a hold of that inspection, I can just give an estimate from that without having to come as well.
So before we started recording, we were talking kind of about the real estate side of your business, how kind of before COVID, before really 2018, is that right? A lot of your business was sellers maybe looking to sell. Well, since that time, it's kind of, has it flopped the opposite where it's buyers that need repair work done? I mean, what's your observation from what you do on how the real estate market has shifted in this area?
Probably, many years ago, on the best jobs, I would be working with an agent and be referred to the customer with a list of things to do before they list the house. And then they are negotiating with the buyer and have another list of things for me to come do after they've had a home inspection. That's, it's great to be able to help them on both ends. But there has been so much demand for homes that the sellers have frequently not had to even do the littler things before they would list the house, because somebody's itching to buy it right away. And me, just personally, I didn't have a lot of connections with buyers agents to pick up those, hey, we've just moved in and we want to, change the faucets, or we want to hang, I'll hang artwork for people as well. And really, that's more, I'm looking more for those types of customers as well now today, because we have so many people moving to Tennessee.
Yeah, we have a lot. I have a lot that want, the hanging artwork, I haven't thought about that. That makes me want to, I hate hanging artwork.
Yeah. And it's more technical than you think,
I hate hanging artwork, and I hate hanging curtain rod.
Shelving.
Why is that so hard?
It takes a lot of precision to get things level, and
I hate it. Oh, you mentioned lighting. I think lighting is a huge thing. A lot of my buyers are always like, we need to replace all these lights. And so I think I just want to throw that out there, because I think that's a huge, an easy job, but nobody wants to do it. And I think if you don't know what you're doing, you can screw it up.
Many people know just a little bit and can make a mistake. But
especially ceiling fans. I feel like ceiling fans are harder. Is that true? To install than just a pendant light? Is that wrong?
No, generally they're significantly more difficult than just a pendant light, or even replacing a dome fixture that's mounted on the ceiling. Those are relatively simple, but you're still dealing with electricity, and you want to do certain things right.
You need to be careful. What about wood rot? On a door frame outside. I see this all the time. I see this while I'm touring houses. I see this on inspection reports constantly. In my mind, wood rot is once you start, you're replacing an entire door frame. That's how I feel. Is that incorrect?
A lot of times you can do a really quality repair that'll last several years with the proper monitoring as a homeowner. There are places that you should put your eyes on, at least once a year. Where, what you're talking about, where the door jamb intersects with the aluminum threshold at the bottom. So I've been doing this for a little over 20 years. And I recall those always being embedded in some sort of glue or sealant that would squirt out where the jamb touched the aluminum threshold. And after 2008, you see a lot of corners cut, like you saw your products in the grocery store shrink. The same thing in the construction industry. You see some of the quality go down and the price stay the same. And that's one place where if I'm installing a new door for somebody and it's one of those doors, I will lay a bead of silicone up against that. It's not as great as having the jamb embedded into it, but it's better than leaving it alone, because the underside of that wood is raw and the aluminum goes underneath there. But any water that splashes on there eventually will get wicked up into the bottom of that wood that's not been sealed and cut at the bottom. And then it slowly rots out. That's why it's always coming up from the threshold, and usually a shape like that. But if that can be cleaned out well, sometimes I may squirt some expandable foam in that hole, and then when it hardens, remove a little bit of it, and then use a particular wood putty that I like to use. It's very hard and dries quickly. In that spot, sand it down, and then paint over it. It's still a repair. Sometimes you may have to cut out a piece of the jamb and insert a new piece of jamb. And then what the customer needs to pay attention to in the future is where that seam between the new wood or the old wood is meeting. Because that's a place where there's going to be sealant like caulk to keep water out. And over time, the expansion and contraction of the wood, it may start to separate. And you can easily just put a little bit more caulk in and touch it up with the paint if you check it every year. Instead of 5 years later, you may notice it's sucked up a lot of water, and now it's a bigger, more expensive repair.
And the wood is flanges rippled, at the bottom. Gosh. Yeah, I see that a lot. Another one that I see is where essentially in a kitchen or in a bathroom where there's not enough caulk or any caulk around the the like wall to countertop, or like where water or whatever may interface. Is that a big deal? Is that something people like in your opinion should repair? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. That was one of the jobs that I just did the other day too for somebody that I had worked for when they purchased their condo.
Yeah.
Someone had redone the bathroom tile around the tub, and they had used the grout that they're grouting the tile with to grout the corners where the tile meets the tile. And although it's really common, it's not the right thing to do. Anytime tile meets tile or meets another surface, you use a matching grout caulk in that space instead of cementitious grout, which is what's going in between the lines of the tile, because the expansion and contraction of those two separate materials or two different materials will eventually cause that grout to crack and fall out. And so I was coming in because it's distasteful, the cracking, and some chunks fall out, and then it's also a place to trap and hold water, and then you might get some mildew growth there. And I was just clearing that out a little bit. I didn't have to remove much of the grout that was there. It was just clearing out what was loose and then applying the proper matching grout caulk over the top of that, which will lock that in place, and it has stretchiness to it, so any expansion and contractions that occur, it's not cracking that grout. Same thing with a countertop at a kitchen. If you're splashing, or if you have kids and they're splashing and those areas don't stay sealed well, the water's going to get in. If they're laminate countertops, they're going to start to swell and delaminate. If it's, at the top of a backsplash and there's drywall behind there, then you can start the drywall getting wet and the paint to peel and the drywall to be replaced. So paying attention to those little areas are cheaper
than replacing, than having to redo the whole thing. Like my tile. Anyways, I'm not better. It's fine. Okay, another repair I see often is, let's talk about water pressure. And I know this is you may not want to talk about this, but I see this all the time. Either the pressure is too high or it's too low. Is that a major problem? Is that easily fixable? If someone sees this on a report, should they freak out, in your opinion? What are your thoughts? Because I always see it's either too low, it's too high, and the too high would imply a pipe could burst or whatever. So what's your opinion on that?
Or leaks. There are pressures that are too high for many different types of plumbing. That is a real frequent one on a home inspection report, and it is crucial. It may not be something that happens immediately, but you can start having a slow leak if the pressure is too high. If it's too low, we always look at the pressure regulating valve. That's what you would be replacing if the pressure was too high, because it has a mechanical part that's failed inside of it, and it needs to the unit be replaced. On the low pressure end, occasionally it might be because somebody had messed with the regulator and accidentally turned it down, but it's usually something that's related to the geography of the house, the neighborhood, or some historic thing where it's a known, we have low pressure in this neighborhood, or there's nothing that we can do about it. I mean, if you spend enough money on it to have a holding tank that's pressurized, you can solve those problems for your house. That's above what I would do. You would hire a different type of plumber for that, but that usually, if it's galvanized plumbing, really old house, that can cause pressure issues as well. But you're more concerned usually about the pipe itself at that point than the pressure. A lot of older homes, do have lower pressures.
Lower pressure. Okay, so you've done work in Florida and Tennessee, right? I'm curious, what are the biggest differences in Florida, small jobs versus Tennessee?
Not a small job, but something interesting. I had been living in a house for 8 months in Florida, renovating it, and I did have some subcontract work done for my clients, and one of those things was the HVAC system. I don't do repairs on that, and all the work I've done has normally been in Tennessee. This was the first for me, professionally doing work in Florida, but we had to replace the ductwork even as well.
Really?
I've never seen ductwork replaced in working in Tennessee, but
was it because of mold?
Yeah, it was microbial growth in the ducts, and it's not something the whole duct cleaning thing is somewhat can be controversial. But this was something that would is not able to be cleaned. It's not dust, it's thick layers of bacteria and growing on and with dust and probably even mold, although they can't say that.
Yeah, you can't
they're
say
not
that.
certified to say that.
Ooh.
But so that was an extra $9,000 on the job.
Was that because it had been the house had been closed then?
No, they had a malfunctioning. It had been rented,
yeah.
And a lot of times the tenants aren't paying attention to what's going on in the house, and there was a problem with the HVAC system, and it wasn't dehumidifying the air properly. The condensate line was blocked, and so it wasn't draining well, and all of the registers in the ceiling where the ducts came out were sweating constantly, and it's just indicative of, I mean, it's Florida anyways, it's high humidity, so you have to be able to keep that out of your house. Right. And with the air conditioner not working properly and it allowing water from the system to be in the house where it shouldn't be, I think the house was built in '86. I think over that period of time, obviously it wasn't the original unit, but the ductwork in an attic that is probably 150, 160, I don't know, very, very, very hot, and very low pitched roof with a low pitched vaulted ceiling. Yeah. So the only the access is like the middle of the house was about 2.5 feet, not quite 3 feet tall for the main trunk line to go down, and so there were two guys up in the attic and one guy down below, feeding different sections. It's not an easy job to do. Yeah. I'm glad they did it.
I'm glad they did that. Okay, so what about, I'm just gonna name some stuff and you tell me if this is like, you gotta hire out the specialist or this is like small jobs. Okay, replacing faucet, like handles and hardwares on sinks.
Whether they would do it themselves?
No, like, is that a job for you or is it a job for a plumber?
Yeah, that's a job for me. Or a plumber. Yeah. Generally, what I try to price that type of a repair a little bit less than a licensed plumber would. I find many plumbers that are licensed and competent in what they're doing, they just don't have any sense for fit and finish. So they tend to, and I'm a detail person. Right. And the details can be consuming sometimes, and you have to dial it back and say, no, actually this is acceptable. Yeah. But I'll find toilets off a little or the fixture twisted a little bit or something like that. So I like to pay attention to detail. I like to do things really well and clean. But because I'm not a licensed plumber, but I'm still able to do this as handyman, I will charge a little less. And sometimes I'm more available. Yeah, some plumbers, they will not come out for that. But that's what I find too. There's a lot of guys they're like, I don't want to do that. That's not, you know what I mean? So that's why, they want a big job. Right. And they want it to It needs to make sense. Whoever's doing whatever they're doing, it needs to make sense for whatever that is. What about changing out like electrical plate covers? Well, the switch or the outlets, and you might put a new cover on at the same time, especially if you're changing color. Right. So if you have 50 different outlet covers in your house, call him and he can get them all the same. That's one of my pet peeves. I'm telling you, I'm like, this looks so trashy. Like people that will spend $100,000 on a renovation and not change that. I'm like, let's just change that. But that's my personal opinion. Okay. What about like getting all the light bulbs the same? Light bulbs can be really cool now. I know. Yeah, I know that. That's why I mention it, because I feel like if you go to Lowe's or Home Depot or you get your light bulbs, now there's 1,000 choices. There are. And really a tip on that is looking at the lumens instead of wattage. I mean, the wattage, when we're outside of incandescent bulbs, the wattage is really irrelevant, and they're usually very low, especially if they're LED fixtures or compact fluorescents. Yeah. So the lumens is what allows you to compare apples to apples. Okay. Like 800, 850 lumens would have been a standard like 60-watt incandescent bulb before. Yeah. So with that in mind, when you're looking at a newer fixture, you maybe are getting an LED bulb and you want 100 wattage of light. Yeah. The equivalent of that would be like maybe 1,000 lumens or 900 lumens or something like that. But the wattage is going to be probably not even 15 watts. Yeah. Okay. It's amazingly low. Okay. Another thing. What about changing out doorknobs,
changing out
Yeah,
locks, like that kind of stuff.
New lock sets. If somebody's just purchased a house and needs to have all the locks changed.
Yeah.
Love to do that.
Awesome. What about like deck staining?
Yeah, occasionally I do. I just painted a large double deck, not stained, but it was a full repaint. It was a difficult and time consuming one. I'm not the cheapest on something like that. Where sometimes you know if you have a painting contractor and that's all that they do, they'll be in a little bit cheaper than me on that. These are people in my neighborhood that know me and trust me, and they're just say, hey John, do this, and we know you'll take care of us, right? But this was one where you had to paint the joists and the bottom underneath of the upper deck too, so
hard pass for me.
You have to spray that, and then everything else was
What about changing out hardware on like cabinetry?
Oh yeah, love to do that.
He said the word love, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, which not a lot of people will say that, and I think that you do need a detailed oriented person for that, because otherwise your hardware, especially you have the ones that have like it's a pull with 2 holes that are going in the cabinetry. If that goes wrong,
it's hard to fix.
I'm just saying. I have a couple cabinets in my kitchen where the thing is sideways. Okay, any other like common stuff that I missed that you do?
I mean, it's not glamorous work, but you know, changing toilets for people.
Yes.
Fixing toilet problems. You've got that rocking toilet that you just you know that could be a potential leak and you not be aware of it. If your toilet rocks every time you flush, there may be a chance that a little bit of water leaks into the subfloor. So if you have wooden subfloor and you're not on a concrete slab, slowly over time that's leaking under your finished flooring and rotting that subfloor, and so eventually you may have a huge repairs. If it's tile, you may not have known, and now the tile's starting to break. A wobbly toilet should be addressed right away because there's a wax seal that's under there, and if it separates from the bottom of the toilet, every time you flush, a little bit of water will get past that seal and into the house.
And like also like not the flusher, the handle, that flushes. Like you can fix that. You can fix not
in running toilets. You know, so there's only generally like 3 repairs that you're doing with a toilet. Is something with the seal, something with the fill valve, or something with the flapper or the there's different types of flappers now. I can repair all of those. So where the water comes from the wall and goes past the shutoff valve and up the braided pipe into the back of the tank. That's where the fill valve sits, and the water comes into that first, and it has the float in the tank that shuts off the valve when the water gets to a certain height in the tank. And if that's not working properly, if that's not shutting off properly, then that's where you hear often the running of the water sound, because it's trickling into the overflow. So that's one common repair. You know, the flapper is different. You'll hear running water sound, but it'll be a trickling through the drain, and then every so many minutes your toilet that valve will kick on and start to fill the tank up again a little bit.
What about sliding glass door locks?
That can be tricky. That can be really tricky.
I think that's a problem. And then what about doors that won't stay shut? Like either they're hung not correctly, like a hinge problem, or I guess it's, what would cause that where a door doesn't stay shut? I guess it's the latch, the knob, or whatever.
Usually it's because the door has not been hung plumb, which you know, horizontal is level, but perfectly straight up and down is plumb. And if the door is out of plumb, the jamb of the door is out of plumb, then of course because of gravity the door will either want to swing open or swing closed, whichever way it's tilted. Short of rehanging the door, which is usually not cost effective, there's other surfaces around that might need to be addressed. It's expensive. It's really the cost of completely installing another door, demoing one, and then trying not to damage it. There's some little tips that you can change the hinges sometimes to a hinge that has more friction. That's one way. Another way is to sometimes take out the hinge pin and hammer it flat so that it just warps it a little bit so it's not straight, and then when you hammer the hinge pin back in, it creates friction. And will, on an interior door, will sometimes leave it in the position where you put it. That's not an easy one to fix, which is maybe why we see it.
I see that.
So
I see that quite often. What about like installing handrails, primarily like stairs, or I see a lot of like where handrails have come out of the wall. Like, you can fix this.
I can, or I can install, hardware in a bathroom or something like that if somebody needed. There's a lot of age-in-place specialists that are doing things like that as well too. But I've done both of those.
Okay. Floor transitions, where either no transition was put down. So it's like, I see this all the time when it's like hardwood to an LVP, where it's very clear, these are not the same. And like, there's just a gap, like between, say it's like kitchen to living room, and there's just like a hole on the ground. Not a hole, but there's a slit. Like, can you fix that? Like,
you see that a lot in people's houses where they have not used a proper transition. Maybe that's usually related to homeowner installations, or maybe just a poor contractor
nobody got finished. It was a poor contractor finished it, or it's come off. That's a lot of times where there was a transition, or it's like it came off, whatever.
Some of those can be repaired. That is a tricky thing as well. Some of the,
so that would be like a call you and just see.
There's lots of different strips that can be used in those places. It's best if you're know what you're doing and have the right perfect strip that matches the flooring at the time when you purchased, but there are some aftermarkets that can be done.
Anything that you're like, we didn't talk about this and we needed to talk about this.
The wood rot thing outside is common in my work in doing home inspection repairs. Frequently not addressed. I hang shutters. I do a small amount of pressure washing.
Well, I think when people think sometimes handyman, they think of just like, I just have this one job, but I have had a number of clients over the years who like needed a bunch of light fixtures hung. They've needed hardware replaced, like stuff like that. And so that's perfect. That's a good thing, or maybe you start putting together a list of like, these are things you potentially want to get done before you sell. Like a lot of times when I talk to sellers, they're like, oh, I have all these things I've been wanting to do. And so just keep a running list, and then, when you're ready, give John a call and we'll take a look at it.
Yeah, so, I would love that. Those lists are ideal, and frequently I can give estimates with photos if I need to, but I'm happy to come out and give
and he's super speedy too.
Yeah, well, I like to focus on small jobs and only small jobs, but I've really tried to structure what I'm wanting to do now around quickly servicing people that need small things done, that are having a challenge getting that done. It's awesome. It's rewarding for me to do that.
Well, and I think it's like super needed, because I think sometimes like stuff gets put off until it's a bigger problem when if it's addressed sooner or whatever. And then from a real estate side of things, I think when you're moving in, obviously you have stuff that you want to get done. I feel like sometimes if you don't do it when you move in, it won't get done.
Right. Or
you know what I mean? Until you're gonna sell. And then sometimes if so I just think it's good to have somebody that's reliable, because I do think that can be so hard to find too as well. Good, reliable, guy like yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, I do. I try to provide just outstanding service to all of my clients, and I'm an owner operator of this business. I don't have employees. I don't want to manage people anymore, and that's what gets you the level of service that's different than hiring, another company that has employees, because that employee is not going to work for you like I am working for you, because they don't think about business when they go home. They just think, I have a job and now I've clocked out and I don't have that job anymore. Whereas I will be responding to you. I want you to refer me to your friends. I want you to call me for years and years to do whatever it is that you need to have done.
Awesome. Okay, if people want to hire you, talk to you, ask you questions, where should they do that at?
My cell phone is the best place to start. Area code 865-712-6709. I have new cards. I've sort of rebranded this John of all trades.
Which I love that.
It was good. My sister had that idea. But any other realtors out there too, I used to do work under Closure Home Fast, which I no longer host that website. So if you go there, you're going to say, wait, I thought this guy was in business. I am, but I'm just not hosting that website. So cell phone, start with the cell phone or a text. I'm a little not having the time yet to develop social media stuff. But I do have a LinkedIn profile under my name, John Cressman. That's at Remodeling Solutions, LLC. There is a Facebook page for John of All Trades, but I'm just getting it up and go. So it's not really rich content.
Right. That's okay. That's all. It's all a process. Awesome. Well, anything else? We good? Did I miss anything?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Really
this has been great.
Here.
I'm like, I still could keep going with these repairs, but we'll spare the people. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.